Israel is facing a series of natural disasters. After being hit by massive forest fires and sandstorms, now the Zionist entity is experiencing massive flooding that has caused landslides and disrupted infrastructure. Is God's punishment beginning to descend? Flash floods have hit southern Israel due to heavy rains in recent days. The disaster forced the closure of several major roads, including Highway 90, a 480-kilometer strategic transportation route. The road connects important areas from Metula on the northern border with Lebanon to Eilat in the south. In addition, Highway 40, which is the second longest road in Israel, was also closed due to flooding and landslides. Police have issued traffic warnings and updates to anticipate further impacts of the extreme weather. In the city of Eilat, security forces have tightened surveillance and urged the public to follow safety instructions. The floods come just days after massive forest fires swept through the area between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, destroying more than 4,900 hectares of land and injuring 21 people. The fire was fueled by high temperatures and strong winds, making it one of the largest in recent years. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu even declared a state of national emergency following the massive forest fires. Shortly after, Israel experienced a sandstorm in the southern part of the country. This sandstorm coincided with strong winds that intensified the forest fires raging in the middle of the Zionist country. Returning to the floods, the impact of this disaster is not only limited to traffic disruptions, but also has the potential to worsen environmental and economic conditions in the affected areas. The Israeli government is now trying to deal with the situation by deploying rescue teams and strengthening infrastructure to deal with possible aftershocks. This situation shows how important it is to be prepared for climate change and increasingly frequent natural disasters. Behind the panic and destruction that is visible, there are tired faces trying to survive. Small children who do not understand why their homes are gone. Parents who can only surrender to watching their life's hard work be swept away. Disasters do not choose their place, but when they all come one after another, we can't help but wonder, is this just a coincidence? Or is there a message being conveyed by the Creator? The world is changing. Nature is no longer kind. Everywhere we see warning after warning, earthquakes, hurricanes, droughts, floods, and now, hailstorms battering a land that has long been militarily powerful, but powerless in the face of the power of the universe. To some, these are just another natural disaster. But to those who believe, it could be a warning that humans have been too careless, arrogant, and forgetful that above all power, there is a power far greater. Behind all the destruction, there is always hope. May this be a moment to reflect, improve ourselves, and return to the right path. For anyone, anywhere. Because when nature is angry, no one can take refuge except in Him. Maybe this is the time for us to pause for a moment from the hustle and bustle of ambition and the race for power. It's time to open our eyes and hearts, realizing that progress without wisdom will only bring destruction. Technology may be sophisticated, weapons may be strong, but none can withstand the waves of floods or the tremors of the earth that shake from the deepest foundations. Now the question is no longer about who is the strongest or who is the most advanced, but who is the most aware, who is willing to change, subdue the ego, and return to respecting the balance that has been maintained by nature for thousands of years. Because if we ignore this message, it is not impossible that what comes next will be even more devastating. So let us make every event a lesson, not to blame each other, but to hold each other's hands, correct the direction, and rearrange the way we live on this earth, the only home we have. And when we start to walk with a new awareness, may it not only be disasters that come one after another, but also grace and blessings from heaven and earth. Because in truth, behind every great trial lies a greater opportunity, the opportunity to change, to grow, and to return to our nature as guardians, not destroyers of life. This world is not merely an inheritance from our ancestors, but a trust for future generations. Therefore, every decision we make today will determine whether they will inherit life or destruction. We can no longer live as if there are no consequences. Pollution that is left unchecked, forests that are cut down mercilessly, land that is exploited without pause, all now demand accountability. And perhaps through these disasters, nature is reminding us, enough is enough. Let us listen. Let us pause for a moment and ask, where is our life really headed? What is the point of all this if in the end we lose the most essential things, peace, blessings, and balance? This is not the end, but it could be. This is a new beginning if we dare to change, if we are willing to be humble, if we want to return to the values that have perhaps only been lip service, but have not truly been lived out in action. Because perhaps the only way to appease the wrath of nature is to soften the human heart. And softening the heart does not mean being weak. That is precisely where true strength lies. When humans are able to subdue their lusts, restrain their greed, and choose to care for, not destroy. This sick world does not need more material achievements, but more compassion. It does not need more speeches, but more real actions born from awareness and concern. When we see houses swept away, the ground cracked, and the sky seems angry, it is not only about physical destruction, but also a symbol of the broken relationship between humans and their creator, and between humans and each other. We are busy building walls of power, but forget to build bridges of humanity. It is time for us to look at the sky again, not just to look for the weather, but to find direction. It is time for us to bow, not in defeat, but in sincere prayer, so that our steps forward will no longer bring wounds but hope. Because if not now, when? And if not us who start the change, who will? Let's start from the simple, looking after each other, reminding each other, and praying for each other, so that the world we live in can be calm again, so that nature smiles again, and so that all of us, as one human race, can continue our lives, not with fear, but with gratitude. That sense of gratitude will be the foundation for a new civilization, a civilization that does not only measure progress by the height of buildings or the speed of connections, but by the depth of the heart and the sincerity of action. A civilization that does not view nature as an enemy or a field of exploitation, but as a friend and a trust that must be guarded with love. Maybe it takes a jolt to wake us up. Maybe it takes loss to remind us of what's most important. But from the rubble, we can rebuild in a more righteous direction, with a clearer spirit and with a cleaner heart. Because there is always hope, as long as we are willing to change. As long as we are willing to hear the whispers of our conscience amidst the noise of the world. As long as we still believe that goodness, no matter how small, will never be in vain. Let us bring this spirit to our families, to our communities, to our leaders. Let us push the values of humanity and divinity back to the center of decision-making, so that this world will not only recover, but be better than before. Because if disaster is nature's way of speaking, then change is our way of responding. And may our response no longer be in the form of regret, but in the form of awareness and action. Now is not the time to ask who is at fault, but who is willing to be part of the solution. And being part of the solution doesn't always mean doing big things. Sometimes it's enough to choose wisely in everyday life. Planting, not destroying. Giving, not demanding. Listening, not just talking. The world is changing not because of one big action, but because of millions of small actions done with sincerity and love. We need to rebuild harmonious relationships with nature, with each other, and with God. It is harmony that has been lost, replaced by busyness, competition, and endless ambition. We forget that humans were not created as absolute rulers, but as caliphs, leaders who serve, not oppress. Right now, the world is knocking on our conscience. Through these shocks, the universe seems to want to ask, do you still remember who you are? Do you still know the way home? And we must answer, not with promises, but with sincerity to change. Return to the values of goodness, return to morality, return to responsibility as guardians of life. Because if we can get through these difficult times with a clean heart and the right steps, then it is not only destruction that we will witness, but also a new birth, a wiser world, a more conscious humanity, and a more peaceful life, born from wounds but growing in hope. Hope is not just a dream, but a seed that we must plant and care for together. Every action we take, no matter how small, is an investment for a better future.